So consider this before we go over it together. Given that this definition of odds favorable outcomes to unfavorable outcomes, find the odds of spinning this spinner and landing on the section labeled B. Then find the odds of landing on a green section of the spinner. Then find the odds of not landing on the section labeled A. Pause and try that, then come back when you're ready to talk about it. If it's favorable to unfavorable, there are 5 equally sized places where this spinner can land. The favorable outcomes for the odds of B would be 1. The unfavorable outcomes is not 5, it's not all the total places it can land, it's the ones that we don't want, so the other 4. It's 1 to 4. 1 to 4 or 1 to 4. Those are the odds of landing on B. The odds of green, there are 2 favorable places where it could land. And how many unfavorable? 1, 2, 3. So 2 to 3 would be the odds of green. Or 2 to 3 or 2 to 3. The odds of not landing on A, now our favorable outcomes would be all of the spaces that are not labeled A. And there are 4. So 4 to the unfavorable would be landing on A, 1, 4 to 1. 4 to 1 or 4 to 1. I mean, you can see, when you see 4 over 1 equals 4, you can understand that odds are not limited to that range of 0 to 1 the way probability is. That's because you're not comparing a part to a whole, you're comparing one part to another part. And those numbers could be, there's really no limit to that range, like there is with probability. Okay. So now putting both of these definitions up here as a reference. This is not on your notes, but calculate this, and I'll pause and come back and compare your answer to mine. The probability of landing on the space labeled C on this spinner, there's only one space labeled C, and there's 4 possible outcomes. We were doing probability here, so favorable to possible. So 1 favorable outcome. I'm doing this. I've done so many videos in a row. I apologize if this is not my best. Okay, 1 favorable outcome, but 4 equally likely possible outcomes. So 1/4 or 1 to 4. Consider the probability of C on this spinner. Okay, there's only one space labeled C, and there are 4 spaces where it could land, but they're not equally likely. So we need to break these up like this and understand that if this space is 1/8 or half of 1/4, so 1/8 of the spinner, and this is 1/8, I need to realize that B takes up 2/8 and A takes up half of the spinner, or 4/8. And so the probability of C here, there's only 1/8 of the spinner that's labeled C, but there are 8/8 where it could land. And so the possible places it could land would be 8 compared to 1, or 1. The probability of C would be 1 out of 8, 1/8. No, I'm second guessing myself on something. I did that right, okay. What's the probability of landing on C on this spinner? Think about that, pause it. Now the tricky thing about this spinner is while the areas are differently sized, certainly, where the spinner lands is not dependent on area the way a dart would be. Where the spinner lands is dependent on the angle of the spinner. And the angle of section B is 90 degrees, taking up 90 degrees of the circle. they're all 90 degrees. So even though these spaces are differently sized, in terms of a spinner, all of these the spinner is equally likely to land on any one of these 4 spaces. So this is in fact 1/4 probability, just like the first one we looked at. It's just you really have to think about what angle, that the angle determines where it lands and has nothing to do with area. All right. If you were playing Scrabble and you had these letter tiles and you put them in a bag and shook them up and picked one of the letter tiles without looking, answer this question, pause, and then come back and compare your answer to mine.